All right, so apologies that I was unable to be with you guys today, 8C, but we'll still go ahead and do the teaching here. Today we're going to be looking at operations with decimals. It's going to be exercise 3E. The learning intention and success criteria is that to understand multiplying or dividing powers of 10 can be done by moving the decimal point, and success criteria is I can add and subtract decimals, and I can multiply and divide decimals. So give you guys just some time to write this down. So we'll just have a quick pause here. Shouldn't take more than 30 seconds. All right. So now that we've taken a pause, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do the bound reference notes. So for the bound reference notes, the first one that we have is adding and subtracting decimals. So when you add and subtract decimals, what you need to do is align the digits in similar place values, columns, and ensure that the decimal points are lined up directly underneath each other. So when you have something like this, what you need to do is put it into the algorithm very similar to what we did when we were doing with whole numbers, so integers. And as we can see here, the decimal points, they actually line up with each other. All right, so the decimal points, they line up with each other, and we have the ones in the ones column right here, the tens in the tens columns, and then we looked at it last theory lesson that we have the tenths right here, the tenths with a TH, and then we also have the hundredths, so the 0 and the 3 are the hundredths. This one here is wrong because the decimal points are not lined up with each other. So when you're going to add these two things, you are actually going to be adding the wrong columns with one another. The next part that we have is multiplying and dividing decimals by powers of 10. So when you multiply, you're basically going to be moving over to the right, okay, by the same number of zeros in the multiplier. So right here, we are moving to the right 2 spaces. So the decimal point is right here. It starts there and it moves to the right 2 spaces. And the reason why it moves 2 spaces is because right here we have 2 zeros. So you move the decimal point then by the number of zeros there are. You decide which way that it goes. If it is a times, it goes to the right because it's making the number bigger. When you divide, so right here, when you divide, you move the decimal point to the left, okay? Same thing by the same number of zeros. So on here, this is where the decimal point is, and we're going to move it. We're going to move this 1 space to the left. The reason why we're moving it 1 space is because there's only 1 0 there. Okay. So give you guys just a time here to pause for 2 minutes to make sure that you get this into your bound reference notes. All right. So now we'll move on to the next slide where we're talking about multiplying decimals. So we've just done it with adding decimals. So adding and subtracting decimals, very similar here with adding and subtracting decimals. For this, it works the same even if it's a minus, okay? So you still put it in that algorithm. But on here, what actually happens is that you need to now include the decimals as part of the algorithm as well. So step 1 that we have is multiply the numbers normally, ignoring the decimal points right now. We know how to actually do this where we have multiplied the whole numbers. The step 2 is count the number of digits behind the decimal in both numbers. This is your new decimal place. So for example, we have one number here, one number here. So there are two numbers in the 34.51, and there is one number after the decimal point in 1.2. So when you figure this out, all right, what you're going to have, so I'll do a quick demonstration. So you multiply it like you normally do. 2 times 1, that is 2. 2 times 5, that is 10. So you carry the 1 over. 2 times 4, that is 8, plus 1, that is 9. And like we did before, we get rid of that, just so then you remember that you don't use that anymore. Then you go 2 times 3, that is 6. This now is the, you are multiplying by 1, but we consider that a 10. So by doing that, we're going to add the 0 there now. And then you multiply as you normally do. So 1 times 1, that is 1. 1 times 5, that is 5. 1 times 4, that is 4. Remembering we don't use that one anymore. So that is, yep, we've used that. We don't consider that again. 1 times 3, that is 3. Keeping in mind, remember that I'm making sure that all of my columns are in line with each other. So if I do that and I add it, what you should have, I'll put it over here on this side, okay? So 0 plus 2, that is 2. 1 plus 0, that is 1. 5 plus 9, that is 4. 14. And then, of course, you carry the 1 over. Oops, what am I doing? The 1 over. 4 plus 6 plus 1, that is 11. So it's going to be 1 here. Get rid of that. And then 1. And then 1 plus 3 is now 4. So it's not 13, it's going to be 4. So the answer that we have is 41,412. But remember what we said was we have 1, 2, 3 numbers after the decimal point right here. So the answer is going to have 3 decimal places. So what that means is it's going to go 1, 2, 3. That's where the decimal point is actually going to be. So the answer for this is 41.412. Okay. So just to summarize, we multiply as per usual. So multiply normally, ignoring the decimal point. Once you have the answer from multiplying normally, then we count the number of digits. And then that's when we consider, okay, where are we going to put the decimal point? So the number of the number of digits after the decimal point, that's how many decimal places there are going to be. Okay. All right. I'll give you guys just a minute to write down the steps. Okay. Write down the steps. Both numbers, make sure that you highlight that. Write down the steps. Don't worry about doing the worked example for now, because we are going to do the worked example after this. So just 2 minutes to, actually no, just 1 minute, just pause here. All right, so we'll move on to the next one. This is now going to be dividing with decimals. Okay, so the next part that we have here is dividing by decimals. When you move the decimal place in the dividend, if you divide by whole numbers, move the decimal place in the dividend directly above in the quotient. So this is the dividing algorithm that we have done before. And then if we have a look, we are lining this up right here. So you're dividing by a whole number. So like what we did before, we just divide each number by the dividend here on the outside, just from left to right. So 1 divided by 3, you can't do that. So what you need to do is you consider both of these. So it then becomes 18 divided by 3, and you're going to get 6. Keeping in mind that we have the decimal point here now, so you just leave it as is. Then it's going to be 3 divided by 3. That is going to be 1. And then 9 divided by 3, that is going to be 3. So the answer that we have is 6.13. So that's easy enough. There's not too much that you need to consider with that. But then when you are dividing by decimal, all right, what we says is we are avoiding decimals. So on here, if you're dividing this number here by 0.02, there are actually 2 decimal places here. So what you want to do is you want to turn this right here, that's the divisor, you want to turn that into a whole number. So the way that you turn that into a whole number is what it talks about right here is we multiply by 100, just so then we can move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right, and then this 0.02 will then become 2. And then whatever we do to one side, we must do to the other side as well, right? So then it is still an equivalent expression. So with this decimal point, we are also going to move it 2 spaces to the right. So instead of it being 2.346 divided by 0.02, we are now going to do 234.6 divided by 2. And that's something that is easier. So to calculate using the algorithm. So the way that we would write that now is just 2. It is 234.6 divided by 2. So the 2 is on the outside. So the only thing that you guys need to write here is just this part. Again, we are going to have the worked examples, so make sure that you do the you-dos. So you don't need to worry about this right here. So I'll give you guys just a minute just to write this down. So just pausing it here for a minute. All right. So we'll move on to the next part now, which is doing all the different worked examples. So step by step, like we had before, align the digits in the place column values. So in the tens, the hundreds, thousands, if we have any, in the tenths, in the hundredths, in the thousandths, if we have any. Okay. Now, if there are any missing decimal places, just fill it with zeros. This is talking about it on the very right-hand side. And you'll see it in this first example here. So what we have is, oops, not that. We have 14.5, and we're going to plus, so making sure that it's in the correct value, column 201.43, and then 2.4. I'm going to add all of that. Now, what it talks about here is filling any of the decimal places with 0. The reason why you fill it with 0 is because this is the tenths. So we have tenths for all of these numbers. But on here, we don't have any hundredths for the first number and the last number. So just so then we know how to include that into the equation, we are just going to add the zeros there. So it doesn't actually change the value at all, but it gives us a visual reminder of what we are calculating. So you do this as per normal, where you just add per column and then you go along the column. So 0 plus 3 plus 0, that is 3. 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 4 is 13, so 3 is here. You keep the decimal point, so keep making sure that you are, of course, lining that all up, and you carry the 1. 1 plus 4 plus 1 plus 2, so 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So you can just keep that there. This is 1 plus 0. There's nothing to add here, so you just leave that as is. So 1 plus 0, that is going to be 1. And 2, there's nothing else to add here as well, so it'll just be 2. So the final answer is 218.33. The next one is going to be very, very similar. So same algorithm that we use. 6.4 minus 2.53. And making sure that we add the 0 right here, so then we know we have a visual representation of what we're actually adding or subtracting. So on here, it's going to be 0 minus 3. We can't do that, so what we need to do is we have to borrow. So that's going to turn into a 3. That will now be a 1. Sorry, a 10, because we're borrowing from the tens column here. So then we have 10 minus 3. We do know what that is, and that is 7. And then we go along as well. 3 minus 5, can't do that, so you must borrow from the other column. So we're borrowing from the 1s. That's going to be 5, and this will now be 13. So then it'll be 13 minus 5, and that is 8. The decimal point, they stay as is, so your decimal point is just going to be right there. And then lastly, we have 5 minus 2, and that is 3. So I'll give you guys just 4 minutes. Actually, yeah, 4 minutes. Pause here, so then you can calculate the you-dos as well. All right. So let's make sure that you guys got it correct. I'm going to put this into the algorithm. So 13.4, 124.81, 2.5, making sure that they all line up in the correct columns. That will be a 0, 0. So 0 plus 1 plus 0, that is 1. 4 plus 8 is 12. Plus 5 is 17. So 7 there. And then 1 up here. Again, making sure that these all line up. Mine didn't line up perfectly, so I'm going to just correct that. Just have it right there. Yep. And then 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 4 is 8. Plus 2 is 10. So it's going to be 0 here. And then carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. There's nothing else to add. And then 1, there's nothing else to add. So it's going to be 130.71. The next one that we have is the subtract. So 5.3 minus 1.46. Again, making sure that we are going to put the 0 there, so we have that visual representation. It will be 0 minus 6. We can't do that, so we're going to borrow 1 from here. So that will be 2 now. It will be a 2. And we borrow the 1. So then it becomes 10 minus 6. 10 minus 6 is 4. Then we go along. 2 minus 4, we can't do that, so I have to borrow from here. So that becomes a 4. And this will become a 12. So 12 minus 4 is 8. Same deal with the adding. That's all lined up. The decimal point just stays where it is. Then it becomes 4 minus 1, and the answer is 3. Okay. So make sure that you have this in your book, in your you-dos. I will be checking at the end of the week. All right, we are going to go to the next one now. This is now going to be multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. So when you multiply and divide with the powers of 10, make sure that, so this here, you need to be very, from the back of your hand. Divide goes to the left because it's going to make the number smaller. Times, it goes to the right because it makes the number bigger. So count the zeros and move the decimal point to the number of zeros that there are. Okay, rewrite the number clearly. So on here, this is a divide, so we know that that is going to move to the left. So the left, this is where the decimal point is. So I'm going to move it. How many spots? 1, 2 spots. So 1, 2. So that's going to be the point there now. So the final answer is going to be 0.823. Okay. And then on here, this is times. So that's going to move to the right. How many spaces are going to move? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you need to then find where the decimal point is. So the decimal point is right here. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. The new decimal point is there. So the answer is going to be 162,531.3. Okay. So key things to note is divide, it goes to the left. Times, it goes to the right. And then you just move the decimal points to the number of zeros that there are in here. Now, keeping in mind, you can only do this with powers of 10. So what that means is it can only be, this strategy can only be used with 10, 100, 1,000, tens of thousands, a million, 100,000, a million. So powers of 10. Okay. So I'll give you guys just a minute. This one should be very quick. A minute to do the you-do. Okay, so we do the same thing. This is a divide. Divide means it's going to move to the left, making it smaller. There are 1, 2 spaces. So this moves 1, 2 spots. The final answer is 0.164. Okay. Now you might ask, you can write 0.164, but we know with a 0.164 that there should be a 0 there as well. They're both technically correct. Now, next what we have is the times. So times, we're moving to the right. We are moving it 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. Find the decimal point. You're going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces there. So the final answer is 428,172.4. Okay. So make sure that you have this in your you-dos. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask. So we're going to do this last one here. And then I'm going to help you guys out. Look, we'll continue this on... No, actually. So we'll finish off the last 2 worked examples now. The first one is going to be multiplying the decimals, just like we had in the previous bound reference notes. Multiply normally, ignore the decimals, then count the number of digits behind both of the numbers. Okay, so behind both of the numbers. So we'll put it into the algorithm. 432 times by 3. 3 times 2, that is 6. 3 times 3, that is 9. 3 times 4, that is 12. And then how many numbers, or how many digits are there after the decimal places, looking at both numbers. So on here there's only 2. There's nothing over here. So that means the decimal place is going to go 1, 2 spots. So the final answer is 12.96. Okay. You can just keep it as that, but this is just writing it clearer. Same thing with this. 614, so ignoring the decimal, times by 43. Again, ignoring the decimal, making sure that you are still lining up all of the columns correctly. Okay. So 4 times 3, that is 12. 4 times, carry the 1. 4 times 3, what am I saying? No. 4 times 3, that is 12. Then 3 times 1, that is 3. And then you add the 1, that becomes a 4. Making sure that we get rid of that now because we've used it. Then 3 times 6, that is 18. So it just becomes 18. Then we are going to add the 0 here, just like we normally do with our multiplying. 4 times 4, that's 16. So carry the 1. Then it's 4 times 1, that is 4. And then you add the 1. So now you've used that. That's going to be 5. And 4 times 6, that is 24. Then as per usual, you're going to add these two together. 0 plus 2, that is 2. 6 plus 4, that is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 8, that is 9. Plus 5, that is 14. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Plus 4 is 6. And then lastly, we have 2. There's nothing there to add, so you just leave it as is. And then for this, how many decimal places are there? There are 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so there we consider how many decimal places there are in this number now. So it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so the final answer, if you just write it clearly, it's going to be 26.402. So I give you guys a minute. Sorry, not a minute. No, this will take longer. Just pause here for 2 minutes. All right. So last but not least, I'll do this you-dos with you guys. So it'll be 5 to 1 times by 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5, that is 10. How many decimal places are there? 1, 2. So how many digits are there after the decimal? There are 2. And then so we do 1, 2, right here. So the final answer is going to be 10.42. This next one is 258 times 21. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. We add the 0 as per usual when we do it with a multiplying algorithm. 2 times 8, that is 16. Carry the 1. 2 times 5, that is 10. And then we add the 1 there, so it will be 11. And make sure that we get rid of that. And then we carry the 1 from that 11. 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1, that is 5. Then we add these. 0 plus 8 is 8. 5 plus 6, that is 11. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And then there's nothing to add here, so it's just going to be 5. Then how many digits are there after the decimal places? There are 1, 2, and then 3. So we are going to put our decimal spot 1, 2, and 3. So right there. So the final answer is actually going to be 5.418. So I can see that we actually might not have enough time, so we'll leave it as is here, and then we're going to continue on with the dividing the decimals afterwards. So in this the next class that we have, and I'll be there to explain that to you guys. That's the first thing that we'll do. All right, thank you very much. Have a hope you guys had a good lesson. If you do have time, then you can continue on with the log sheets here. I have also put the log sheets on Google Classroom. All right, have a good lesson. I'll see you guys in the next one.